David Maidment is lead mobile strategist at UK technology company Arm. David, can you perhaps introduce Arm and describe its role in IoT for us?
I can, yes. So Arm designs IP. Yes. So what we do is we design IP, we then license that IP to the semiconductor industry. They then build chips, semiconductor products, which are then used in a broad range of areas, all the way from servers, networking, infrastructure, through mobile phones, tablets, TV, automotive. It's a very broad range of application areas.
Very broad, yes.
All the way down to, I think the smallest example I can give you is a swallowable, where you can literally, take a pill with an Arm chip inside, and it can analyze, sort of your vitals as it passes through your body.
Well, I believe Arm has quite a track record in this space, and how are you evolving what you have done into IoT?
It has. So Arm's just celebrated its 25th birthday recently, and during that period, Arm has actually shipped over 86 billion chips.
Good heavens.
Which is an incredible number. And in fact, just last year, 15 billion devices were shipped with Arm chips inside. So as you can see, there's a huge momentum behind that. The important thing to remember with Arm is that it's an ecosystem. So we have a very collaborative business model. We work very, very strongly across the industry with our partners. And what we bring really is a breadth and a common approach in terms of how developers can access that technology and how they can program. So what we've done recently with IoT, we've actually taken our model a little bit further in terms of building a software platform, which we call Arm Embed. And the software platform is really around enabling the IoT. So it's taking all of the kind of the plumbing, if you like, of the Internet of Things, and delivering that as a software platform to developers. So it's areas such as, IP to the edge connectivity, making accessible APIs, having the ability to be able to perform upgrades, making sure that the products are secure in a consistent way. So with Arm Embed, we're enabling a whole new generation of developers.
Well, it certainly sounds like, operating on this scale, that Arm can qualify for one of the themes of our roundtable meeting, is trying to identify the architects of the Internet of Things, and I believe Arm stands up there.
That's correct, absolutely. It's crucial to kind of get the technology out there into the hands of the developers. We were talking about the fact that you can't identify one single entity that's going to kind of win this game. The Internet of Things is many things to different people.
Indeed.
And really it's about getting consistent technologies, secure technologies out into the hands of developers.
I'm hearing a lot about low power wireless area networking, LPWAN, in the press at the moment. What's your take on the emerging technologies such as narrowband IoT, weightless, LoRa, Sigfox, as well as the more established ones like Bluetooth and Wi-Fi? Well,
IoT is all about connecting things. And as we've discussed previously, there's no one size fits all with IoT. And with connectivity, we see the same. So we have a broad range of standards, both established and emerging, that are all striving to meet the demands that we're predicting around IoT. The way that we look at the emergence of the wireless space generally is in two areas. So one is licensed band technology. So it's your traditional telcos, the guys that, they go out, they license that piece of spectrum, and once they have it, then it's theirs to use.
Yes.
We've seen, traditionally that was driven by smartphone kind of usage, and that's now moving towards IoT use cases. 3GPP have done, an incredible job over the last couple of years defining new standards that take energy out of connectivity. They take cost out of connectivity, but they still give you that kind of robustness, that guaranteed quality of service that you expect with a licensed technology. And by having those kind of technologies in license band, you can then have more deterministic business models that you put around it. We talk about automotive, industrial control, smart metering. So it's a very interesting part of the market that
Sure.
I think they're doing well. If we look at the unlicensed or license exempt, it's kind of, you have your established players, so we all use Wi-Fi today. It's running in unlicensed bands. Wi-Fi has a strong roadmap to support IoT. We see extensions for long range, so 802.11ah is an extension for long range. We see the same with technologies such as Bluetooth, which is also moving into the space of IoT. Where we're seeing some disruption, there's some new players coming in around what we call the long-range, low-power technologies that are running in unlicensed bands.
Yes.
And Weightless for sure are looking to fulfill a very strong role there in how they can bring the industry together, drive open standards, and drive some consistency. And from an ARM perspective, where we work with partners who develop all of these different technologies, we see a real need for some standardization and some consistency, particularly in the unlicensed band, so that these technologies play nice together, they're not interfering with each other, because when they do that, they degrade the overall quality of service.
Well, you mentioned Bluetooth, and of course there's been a major Bluetooth announcement in the last week with Bluetooth 5. How does Bluetooth fit into IoT enablement? Yeah,
it's a really interesting question, because Bluetooth is prevalent today. I mean, I was kind of reading a report saying there was sort of well over 200 million Bluetooth devices shipped during last year. The Bluetooth SIG announced, I think it's 30,000 members now, which is incredible. It spans a huge array. And ARM is very active as well within Bluetooth, and we have our own Cordio Bluetooth IP that we license to chip companies. And the reason we do that is because we see Bluetooth being kind of sprinkled into larger SoCs that go into a huge wide range of different applications.
Sure.
So with Bluetooth 5, I think what's interesting is kind of three areas. One is the longer range, and they won't be drawn on exactly how long, but let's say
no, they've been a bit
four times what you have at the moment. I think
it's
and I think being a radio person myself, I understand why. It depends a lot on the environment that you're using it. We're used to Bluetooth being very short range, so having Bluetooth that can cover a home, I think, enables a lot of new use cases, and that's pretty interesting. The higher speed, so they're kind of taking it up to around 2 megabits per second, and that's interesting, not only in terms of the ability to perhaps share more media content, streaming audio, HD sensing. These kind of applications are very interesting. It also feeds into the wider IoT in terms of the quantity of data that you're able to share within a low energy footprint. The final part that I find particularly interesting is around kind of beacons, and we're just starting to get to know beacons and technology, and I think this sort of ambient connectivity where you don't need to download an app, you don't need to make a conscious choice to pair. You just walk around and your radio environment is interacting with you, and so depending on where you are, it's kind of contextually aware and will push a particular service to you. And today we talk about advertising. You could imagine it in supermarkets, in transport hubs, this kind of application area. But I can see that actually, becoming extremely interesting moving forward with a lot of IoT use cases as well.
So do you think that Bluetooth 5 with longer range, higher data rates, and enhanced beaconing capability, does this cement Bluetooth's place in the IoT?
I think it certainly gives it a role. Obviously, with any emerging new use case, then it takes a while for the market to evolve around those building blocks. Keep talking about building blocks, yes. And as an industry, we have to put them in place. The innovators then come and build products around it. But I think just out of the huge installed base of Bluetooth and the fact that we're all so familiar with it, it will definitely be playing a very strong role.
Okay. And what about security, David? How does that affect deployments, and what's ARM doing to address the concerns in that area?
Security is crucially important for the IoT, but it's also a hugely kind of abused term to talk about. I mean, we had a good discussion around security in the Roundtable. And from an ARM perspective, it's essential for IoT to flourish and attract services. If you assume that IoT is ultimately a services-driven market, then there needs to be an established level of trust. Now, from a devices point of view, we view the need within ARM to kind of drive effectively a root of trust that is baked into the device. So the consumer needs to understand that they can trust the device they have. They need to be able to trust how their data is being shared. And that really goes all the way back to the root where the data is generated in the first place. So when we look at security in ARM, we actually break it down into 3 areas. So the first area is the device.
Yes.
And with a device, by virtue of the fact that it's out in the wild, it's vulnerable to, physical attacks. These devices could be opened, they could be tampered with, So having something that is protected is important. Having something that can be firmware updated in a secure way is critical, so that you can actually keep these devices up to date. You can plug any gaps that appear in the market over time in a very efficient way, and you can prevent any malicious software upgrades. So device security is critical.
So big question, David. What about 5G? How does ARM see that developing?
I think first thing to say is there's no such thing as 5G at the moment. There's no standard. I think we're firmly on our way up the kind of hype. So if we have a look and see what's happening at the moment, 5G is it's a set of very serious industry discussions around what we as an industry think needs to happen, both in terms of communication technology, network efficiency, and so on and so forth. So they're all very valid areas that are being explored.
Yes.
If we look at what we have today, 4G is an incredibly successful wireless standard. I think we've just surpassed 1.5 billion subscribers worldwide for 4G, which is incredible.
It is.
Has a very strong roadmap, taking through to gigabit connectivity and beyond. So 4G has really fueled the smartphone revolution and has a strong roadmap moving forward. So when we look at 5G, we need to kind of think, well, what else? What's it going to do that's different? And from an industry perspective, what we see players settling on is really some key kind of performance indicators, if you like. So it's areas such as we need to be able to grow the capacity of the network. We see a huge number of devices arriving on the network, so IoT devices will surpass mobile devices by 2022. So we need a 100x growth capacity in order to support all of these devices coming along. It's often spoken about the data tsunami. We need a huge growth in data capacity. Other areas such as reducing latency in the network in order to enable some new applications around real-time control, ultra reliability, how that feeds into autonomous driving, kind of safety critical systems, I think is very interesting. So 5G is covering an awful lot of areas. From an ARM perspective, we are working very closely with our partners on early 5G developments. We announced back at Mobile World Congress our Cortex R8 processor, which is specifically designed for LTE Advanced and the route into 5G. And it's kind of exciting to be in that early first wave. But I think in reality, it's going to be kind of 2020, 2022 and beyond before we start to really see, what is 5G and how's that going to make an impact. And it's certainly not at the expense of the standards we see at the moment. I think it will complement a lot of what we're seeing.